so much
Mm.
complicated, but
No, it's actually not bad now. So I'm going to, as soon as this goes live, and I'll put the video, audio, so everyone just let it kind of hang in the middle.
Another new day at the
Senior
school.
series.
That's right. So what's the timeline on this?
All right, we're online.
All right, our 5:30 PM has arrived. Tonight, we'll call our Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, Monday, January 29th. First thing is, call to order, roll call.
Alder West is absent. Alder Horton,
Here.
Alder Land. Here. Alder Pathrak. Here. Alder McCarthy.
Present.
That completes roll call.
All right, and we have approval of our minutes for the January 8th, 2024 meeting.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Been moved and properly second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, first item,
Item number 0069-24, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting permission to enter into a contract and accept funding of $6,619.04 from the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection for the Clean Sweep Unwanted Prescription Drug Grant. Control number 00543. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Administrator be granted permission to accept funding of $6,619.04 from the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection for the Clean Sweep Unwanted Prescription Drug Grant. Control number 00543. Fiscal note, there's a 25% soft match required, $1,654.76. Deputy Director is here to speak on the item. I don't know what your title is, Bobby, sorry.
That's okay. Good evening, Alders. Bobby Burgess, the Deputy Public Health Administrator. So, first item, like Kathleen had stated, is for our unwanted prescription drugs. We have over 12 permanent drop boxes at all different locations throughout Racine County. We've had this grant since 2007 and have collected over 29,000 pounds of unwanted prescriptions. So we're asking for a renewal on that grant for this evening.
any questions? Okay. No questions. Need a motion. Move to approve.
A second.
All right, moved by President McCarthy and Alder Pathrak. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item number 0070-24, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting permission to enter into an agreement and accept funding of $108,523 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services for the Communicable Disease and Prevention Program, the Well Women Programs, control number 00525, 00526, and 00524. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Administrator be granted permission to enter into an agreement and accept funding from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services for Communicable Disease and Prevention Program and the Well Women Program. Grant control number 00525, 526, 524. Fiscal note, contract covers 3 grants. Grant control number 00525, Well Women Program for $97,175. Grant control number 00526, Well Women Program for $5,538, and grant control number 00524 CD prevention $5,810. No matches required for these grants. Deputy Administrator Fergus.
So these are another 3 grants that have been long-term within the health department for over 20 years. So our communicable disease grants allows us to dig deeper into trainings, keep up on compliance with the reportable communicables. So this is an opportunity for staff for training purposes. With the amount of communicables that we have and changes within this, will be opportunities for training. And then the Well Woman Program is helps women that have either little or no insurance to get breast and cervical screenings. So our goal is 4,000 women per contracted year. We usually far exceed that. We have grants for this evening.
Any questions?
Communicable disease. Is there any reaction of the wastewater utility as far as looking for evidence of disease in the wastewater utility, or will people be learning more about that?
It's something that the wastewater and public health, we have had conversations about that grant. That is not funding for that, but we meet a couple of times a year to go through some of the information that actually the wastewater will give to the public health department. There's very little, information though that comes out of the water from the communicable diseases.
Well, I think that much, we had, that was used as an advanced indicator, like how for flu has been for COVID related as well.
Correct, yes.
So
So,
that would require a program of specific lab testing,
yes,
and there's no consideration being given that to that yet at this point. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Second.
All right, been moved by Alder Land and properly second by Alder Pathrail. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Item number 0072-24, communications sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting permission to enter into an agreement and accept funding of $115,900 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services Consolidated Contract for Maternal and Child Health Grant Control Number 00548 and Childhood-Led Grant Control Number 0049 and Immunization Programs Agreements Grant Control Number 0050. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Administrator be granted permission to enter into an agreement and accept funding of $115,900 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services Consolidated Contract for Maternal Child Health, Childhood-Led and Immunization Programs. Fiscal note, there's a 75% match for the Maternal and Child Health Services Grant Control Number 00548 in the amount of $43,878. No other soft matches are required.
so these are another 3 additional grants, so, like Captain said, maternal child health, that's something that goes to support our staff time for maternal and child programs throughout the public health department, such as Heartbeats, Cribs for Kids, health and equity, bringing that to the maternal and child health population. So then we have our childhood-led program. That is a program where public health nurses work with environmental health sanitarians on children that are lead poisoned. So, last year we had 137 leads that were reported, 3.5 and greater, to us. So then we conduct education with those families and help with interventions if homes need to be fixed. So, and then immunizations, that's our immunization program for those that either have state insurance or they're underinsured or uninsured. And we gave over 750 immunizations last year to children. Any questions on that?
Somewhere, the last thing you said there, we immunize those that have state insurance. That
No.
was that probably,
For children, childhood immunization.
so the state insurance doesn't cover that?
No, I'm sorry. Because it's funding from the state, we are able to, give them vaccines if needed. We always try to link them to a primary care physician or a pediatrician because they need their well child appointments. But we just want to make sure that, no child falls through the gaps.
Any additional questions? Entertain.
Approved.
Second?
Been moved by Alder McCarthy, second by Alder Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposes? Motion carried.
Item number 0073-24, communications sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting permission to accept funding of $98,708 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services Consolidated Contract for Public Health Emergency Preparedness Programs. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Administrator be granted permission to accept funding of $98,708 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services contract for Consolidated Contract for the Public Health Emergency Preparedness PEP Program, Bioterror Focus A Planning Grant number 00521 and Bioterrorism City Readiness Grant Control number 00522. Fiscal note, contract covers 2 grants, Bioterrorism Focus A Planning Grant number 00521 in the amount of $63,580 and Bioterrorism City Readiness CRI Grant Control number 00522 for $35,128. There's no match required for either grant.
These are long-term grants as well that the public health department has had. These grants help us maintain our emergency preparedness coordinator, the position, along with maintaining our public health emergency plans, which we review yearly and change and work with the county. It also allows us to participate in regional and statewide emergency preparedness activities. We also are a part of a HERC group, which is a healthcare group that meets with healthcare partners as well as all other public health agencies.
Questions? Time I entertain a motion to.
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved by Alder Albright, second by Alder Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposes? Motion carries.
Item number 0074-24, communications sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting permission to enter into a grant agreement and accept funding of $10,981 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services for the Preventive Health and Services Grant Program, control number 00551. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Administrator be granted permission to enter into a grant agreement and accept funding of $10,981 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services for the Prevention Health and Health Services Grant Program, control number 00551. Fiscal note, there is no match required.
This is another long-term grant that the health department has had. It helps us supply education for naloxone training, syringe safety, for the HIV through our harm reduction.
Any questions? All right, it's time, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Alder Land and second by Alder McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposes? Motion carries.
We covered all possible combinations.
Item number 0075-24, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting permission to enter into a contract and accept funding of $301,688 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services for the LPHD Public Health Infrastructure Grant, control number 00545. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Administrator be granted permission to enter into a contract and accept funding of $301,688 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services for the LPHD Public Health Infrastructure Grant, control number 00545. Fiscal note, there is no match required.
So this is the first year that we've received this grant. This is an additional ARPA funds that Department of Health Services has provided to local health departments. This grant is a 5-year grant, so we do not know if it would be renewed or not, but it's to help build the infrastructure of the public health department. So we will be working with the state and other local health departments. We have for the last 3 months, but we'll continue because building this scope of work, what direction that this health department would like to go with the funds.
Sure. What do we consider public health? Moving equipment.
That.
Okay, not that.
So it's not that. So this would be more trainings. The state is really encouraging all local public health departments for accreditation and competencies within their staff. So there's also to utilize so staff feel ready in public health. We've had a lot of transitions since COVID, and so they're really taking some time on redoing the structuring of trainings and giving us opportunity for that. It may be able to be used for staff time as well to offset some of that cost or a temporary position. We currently have one limited term employee that this funding could help keep her past her current grant that she had.
So, according to LPHD, public health infrastructure.
I'm sorry, it is, yes, like building competencies within their staff, creating more, trying to rebuild the public health structure. As far as, everything, I mean, I'll be honest, COVID hit us hard and we're really trying to recruit new staff and get them to buy into public health. I mean, there's a lot of us that have been here for a lot of years, but there's a lot that have not. So
Thank you.
it's still a work in progress. I'll be completely honest with this grant because there are so many different ideas from all different public health departments. It's what, what we need to look further into. But it's not a good one.
Any further discussion? All right, I'd like to make a motion, to 0075-24.
You mix.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, motion by the chair, second by Alderman McCarthy to approve item number 007524. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 0078-24, communications sent by Alder Jones on behalf of the Commissioner of Public Works, requesting permission to apply for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Targeted Runoff Management Grant Control Number 00552 in the amount of up to $225,000. Staff recommendation that the Commissioner of Public Works be granted permission to apply for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Targeted Runoff Management Grant Control Number 00552 in the amount of up to $225,000. Fiscal note, maximum grant amount is $225 and requires a local match equal to the grant. This will be funded in the 2025 stormwater utility budget, account number 60484-57570. Commissioner of Public Works is here to speak on the item.
Thank you, Vice Chair Horton and committee members. Last fall during the budget process, we understood from the administration that common council was desirous to give some more green alleys built, so we included an item in the 10-year CIP for that. We thought, what a better way to do that than to do it hopefully with other agencies' monies. So I'm here for you tonight to apply for some grants. The first one is a TRIM grant, Targeted Runoff Management Grant. It is due in April. This would partially fund this project that we have in the 2024 to 2033 CIP. We should know results of that grant application about the time we start putting together the budget for next year. So we'll know if we're successful or not, and then we'll be able to measure how much grant funding we're going to get versus local share funding. And at that time, make a decision, or have you make a decision if it's a worthwhile project to go forward with. If it does get funding, what level of funding we get. Just for your information, earlier this month, the town council approved with AECOM. We did authorize, the town council authorized an agreement up to a certain amount for them to do the grant application. They have to do some preliminary design on as well as part of that. Like the finance director said, there's a maximum amount available of $225,000. Whatever we get, we have to match that equally. So if the committee agrees, the appropriate action would be to authorize myself to apply for the grant. We'd have AECOM do that. The location of these are two alleys in the uptown area, just south of Washington Avenue by Owen and Junction, in that area. There's also an unused part of a parking lot down there that never gets any use in it. That's an area we could put kind of like a green bow retention area in there. The more we can show TSS reduction, that's why we're kind of throwing it in, the better chance we have for obtaining these grants. There's a green alleys only get so much TSS reduction. We have these grants like this similarly for similar project in the past. We did this over at Lakeview Park on the south edge of the park over there. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? All right, entertain a motion to approve 007824.
Move to authorize the director to apply for the grant.
Second.
All right, and it's been moved by Alderman McCarthy and properly second by Alderman to approve 007-24. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposers? Motion carried.
Item number 0079-24, communication sponsored by Alder Jones on behalf of the Commissioner of Public Works, requesting permission to apply for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Urban Non-Point Source and Stormwater Grant, control number 00553, in an amount of up to $150,000. Staff recommendation that the Commissioner of Public Works be granted permission to apply for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Urban Non-Point Source and Stormwater Grant, control number 00553, in an amount up to $150,000. Fiscal note, maximum grant amount is $150,000 and requires a local match equal to the grant. This will be funded in the 2025 Stormwater Utility Budget account number 60484-57570.
Thank you. Again, this is another grant application for the exact same project I just described, except this is urban non-point source and stormwater grant. Both of these programs are eligible for this type of work, so we're going to go after both grants. There's a possibility we could hit on both of them, and the more grant funding we get, the more affordable it is to the city receive to do these projects. So again, exact same project. Just for a grant that we can get maximum funding up to $150,000 for this project. So we'd like to get permission to apply and come back in a few months to let you know if we came up with it.
Move to authorize the commissioner to apply for the grants.
Second. It's been moved by Alder McCarthy and probably second by the chair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 0082-24, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason on behalf of the Transit and Mobility Director, requesting permission to enter into a professional services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated to complete a Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee KRM Regional Rail Corridor Planning and Federal Funding Application Project. Contract number 2024008, staff recommendation that the purchasing agent, mayor, and city clerk be granted permission to enter into a professional services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated to complete a Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee KRM Regional Rail Corridor Planning and Federal Funding Program Application Project. Contract number 2024008. Fiscal note, cost not to exceed $2 million from funding available in federal congressionally directed spending with no local match required. Account number 602820111. 571-10-82010. Wow. Transit Mobility Director Young is here to speak
Yes.
on the item.
Thank you, Finance Director, for that great account number. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mr. Mayor, it's a pleasure to be in front of you today to talk about a project that is at the core of this administration's focus, which is to connect folks to opportunity. So the city of Racine is in the heart of the third largest economic region in the United States of America, between Milwaukee and Chicago. Historic downtown, award-winning architecture, one of the top 10 freshwater beaches in the country, Frank Lloyd Wright, but it's also a community that struggles with stubborn levels of unemployment and poverty. And so today we have a project in front of you based on the bipartisan infrastructure law, creating an unprecedented amount of investment in passenger rail to investigate what the opportunities are for passenger rail in the city of Racine, connected to downtown Kenosha, up to downtown Milwaukee, and of course connected to the metro region in Chicago. So with that being the understanding, it is our objective to create infrastructure that creates jobs, attracts skilled workers, spurs private development, and expands opportunity in southeastern Wisconsin. So the city of Racine, in partnership with our neighboring cities to the north and south, wish to launch the work of a feasibility study in preparation for federal funding applications. So through this project, we seek to explore the KRM corridor context and develop preliminary passenger rail service concepts, qualitatively evaluate passenger rail service concepts, and identify potential alternatives, and prepare a KRM application to either the Federal Transit Administration or the Federal Railroad Administration in order to get capital dollars for the project. Included in the study, we're also going to be identifying a project sponsor and working in tandem with our partners to identify funding strategies for the project beyond these federal programs. So considering the project scope and based on the city of Racine's published RFP process, The selection committee, which was made up of representatives from the city of Racine, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and Sewer Path, scored qualified firms that submitted their qualifications. And those metrics were based on project manager and team structure, overall team experience with similar rail projects, rail corridor, station facility, and station area planning experience, business case development, organizational management, facilitation of a project similar to this, financial analysis, public engagement, railroad engineering and operations, and of course, experience being successful in pursuing federal funds for projects like this. So based on those types of requests for qualified firms, the committee reviewed those submissions and are recommending to this body that we contract with HDR Engineering and their consulting team, which includes other firms that have worked with the city of Racine, particularly on this project, at a cost not to exceed $2 million in funding available in congressionally directed spending. And I want to thank our representatives from the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, who were critical at putting together a scope that I think is one of the most well-rounded approaches that we've taken to this particular project. So they deserve a lot of credit in this effort. So the timeline for this is to ideally apply for federal funds before the close of 2024. So with that, I will open it up for questions.
Any questions? Alderman.
Thank you.
Director Young, you talked about the designation or search for a project sponsor. I don't understand what that means. Can you clarify that?
Correct. So in order to actually apply for a federal program for funds, there needs to be some type of entity that sponsors the project. So in previous iterations, it was a regional transit commission. Other situations might be that the state would be a sponsor if there were, let's say, this state, if there were, let's say, we're not a stipulation of local match dollars being contributed. So this group will look creatively at what our options are. There might even be some type of local effort based on the city's position, but that's up to the study to determine.
Speaking of this iteration, how much can we build on previously done work both for other engineering efforts that have been done for KRM? Also, say for the next one, because we just did the property study that one just done, I should say. So how much will we be building up on those?
Sure. So one of the exciting things is that we're bringing on folks who've worked on this project before. So because we've got such a tight timeline, having that expertise is going to be critical to getting this over the finish line sooner rather than later.
But if I could ask our representatives from Sudac, I know a lot of what you do is around Vision 2050, I think around now, those kind of things. Do you perceive the need for this type of commuter rail that have identified needs and use regional studies?
Yeah, Eric Lind from the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Thank you, Mayor, members of the committee. Yeah, so KRM is one of the commuter rail lines that's identified in Vision 2050, which is the long range, as 2050 indicates, regional land use and transportation plan. Part of a larger network that's envisioned under that plan. And we have back in the 1990s, 2000s, we worked on the KRM commuter rail study. So we're looking at bringing a lot of that information to your previous question. A lot of that information we brought forward and re-examined as we go through this new effort.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other further discussion? This time I would entertain a motion to approve. That's been moved by Alderman Carter and properly seconded by Alderman Land to approve 0082-24. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposes? Motion carried.
We get that comment on that.
Oh, it's right up in a minute.
Save the file.
Item number 0083-24, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason on behalf of the Transit and Mobility Director, requesting permission to enter into a professional services agreement with AECom to complete a Kenosha Racine Milwaukee KRM passenger rail transit oriented development value capture analysis. Contract number 2023-310, Staff recommendation that the mayor and city clerk be granted permission to enter into a professional services agreement with AECom to complete a Kenosha Racine Milwaukee KRM passenger rail transit oriented development value capture analysis. Contract number 2023-310. Fiscal note, cost not to exceed $320,000, funding available in federally and not say that word. Federal congressionally directed spending with no local match required, account number, just like it was before. Trying to be transparent.
There will be a
Thank you, Finance Director. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. There are questions about what's different about this particular approach. And I think that when you've gone through an effort like the effort to bring about commuter rail in the city of Racine, the idea has never been a bad one. It's always been one that would bring about an enormous benefit to Racine, to Kenosha, Milwaukee, and all of the communities in between. And so it is our job to think creatively about how we engage in alternative forms of financing with an understanding that there are state limitations towards a regional transit authority to invest in this type of project. So due to Wisconsin state limitations on capital and operational funding support, these types of alternative methods must be explored in order to support this project. So similar projects across the United States have leveraged this type of value capture and development support, particularly the Brightline, which is an excellent model that we've looked as inspiration out of Florida. And the KRM passenger rail transit oriented development value capture analysis, say that 5 times fast, wishes to assess the impact of passenger rail on development in the corridor and how you leverage that development to feed back into funding the project itself. So through this analysis, the city seeks to answer key transit-oriented development value capture questions, which include the following. What are the baseline real estate market conditions within the KRM corridor for new multi-use development? Number 2, what is the potential for the new passenger rail service in the corridor to strengthen and create additional market demand? 3, how much new development and new value capture is needed to bridge a funding gap between the capital and operating costs of a new passenger rail service and potential funding that would come from the bipartisan infrastructure law and the federal government. And then finally, what methods of value capture are available and how could they be applied to future development in order to get this project the 20% or any type of local match that would be necessary to be competitive for federal funding. So the committee that was mentioned before, made up of our friends from SewerPac and Wisconsin Department of Transportation, considered the following factors as it relates to qualified firms to do the work. Project understanding approach, experience with real estate market analysis and value capture, knowledge of land use planning and real estate development strategies and scenarios, and finally, the quality of their team and project manager. So with that review taking place, staff recommends today entering into a professional services agreement with AECom, which is familiar to the city of Racine as we partner with them on a lot of different projects, at a cost not to exceed $320,000, which funding is available through the convention during spending with no local match.
Any question? Alderman McCarthy.
I know both this and the previous one, we are as representing Kenosha, carriers, Milwaukee, municipalities as well. They are not each having to go through this. We are sort of leading in charge for this, for the municipalities up and down the proposed.
Yeah, Alderman McCarthy, thank you for that. And that is to the administration's credit on taking the lead on this particular project. But our neighboring municipalities will be at the table. We're going to be putting together a steering committee made up of representatives from the cities of Kenosha, Milwaukee, Racine, Worcester, and SewerPac in order to guide the work of the consultants from here until the completion of the study.
We confirm that they are all on board with this.
They're on board and their councils have all passed resolutions in support of this.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman McCarthy and seconded by Alderman Land to approve 0083-24. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposes? Motion carried. Thank you, Director.
Item number 0089-24, communication sponsored by Alder West on behalf of the Chief of Police requesting permission to purchase canine loci, a 25-month-old Belgian Malamute registered with the American Kennel Club. Staff recommendation that the Chief of Police be granted permission to purchase canine loci, a 25-month-old Belgian Malamute registered with the American Kennel Club. Fiscal note, funds to purchase the canine are available through RPD canine donation account 20622-48500-31002. There is no city match required. Chief Ramirez is here to speak on the item.
Yes, our canines are, just as important as a police officer to our mission and to our, what we do here. This particular canine, Loki, is a gun explosive, it's gun explosive detection capabilities as well as apprehension. Anytime we can use a canine to go in after somebody, whether it's a small space or a hidden place, canines are very useful to us. The funding source is part of the support law enforcement fundraiser every year out at the Meadowbrook for the policeman's call. That's one of our sources here. And the rest comes out of the canine account that we have. This is a Belgian Malinois, 2.5 years old. The handler would be Justin Smithquist, trained by Officer Stephen Beal. This purchase would be in regard to, we had resignation of one of our Angelo staff members went over to the sheriff's office, and the canine was sold to the sheriff's office.
Any questions for the chief?
Whether or not it's very, dying, the dog,
Well, let me just put in the ranks. He resigned when I was sheriff's, my dog went with him, and I went with him, and the sheriff's did provide a staff.
pictures.
I have.
Any other discussion on this item? Not, I entertain a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been a motion by Alder Paragraph, second by Alder Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposes? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 0038-24, communication sponsored by Alder West on behalf of the city attorney's office submitting the claim of Lucia Becerra for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation that the claim be disallowed. Fiscal note NA. Deputy City Attorney Rubik is here to speak on the item. Attorney.
Lucia or Sarah claims reimbursement in the amount of $346 for damages that allegedly arose from an auto collision involving a city racing bus and the school bus that on September 6th, 2023 at the intersection of Gold and Shute Streets. The claimant was a passenger on the city bus. In this instance, the collision occurred when the school bus failed to stop at stop sign and proceeded to strike the city bus. So it is our perspective that the school bus is the one at fault in this accident, which is failed to stop the stop sign. So the city disputes its liability for claim damages and recommends disallowance of this claim.
Move to disallow. It's been moved by the chair and probably seconded by Alder McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposes? Motion carried. Thank you.
So at this time, I would read the paragraph to go into closed session, a motion, a second, and then a roll call to go in. Okay. It is intended that the Finance and Personnel Committee will convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19851G to discuss strategy for litigation in which a city of Racine is or is likely to be involved.
Move to enter closed session.
All right. It's been motioned by Alder McCarthy, second by Alder Land to move to closed session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Alder West is absent. Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Land,
Aye.
Alder Packard. Aye. Alderman McCarthy. That completes roll call to go into closed section.
Give him 1 second here.